Welcome, everyone. I'm so happy to have today Pamela J Smith, a mythologist, and she's going to be talking on myths and media. She has a special program called MYTHIC Challenges that's about using stories to change the world. And she's got a bio that goes on for about 2 hours. So I'm just going to, so welcome, Pamela.
Thank you very much. I'm pleased to be here. Looking forward to it.
So she's a mythologist, an author, an international consultant, speaker, award-winning writer, producer, director with over 30 years experiences in features, TV, music videos, commercials, documentaries, corporate military films, and web series. And then she's got 3 different companies she's co-founded, which is MYTHWORKS. And I've seen that under Alpha Babe Academy, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And then MYTHIC Challenges, and then the Hollywood Masters seminars, right?
Actually, MythWorks is the main company.
Okay.
And then Alpha Babe Academy is a separate but related company. And then Mythic Challenges is one that I co-founded with Brian Dyer, one of our fellow Georgia students, and another person, Jill Gurr. And that's about the create stories that change the world.
Okay.
And so those are the main 3, the MythWorks, Mythic Challenges, and Alpha Babe Academy.
Okay. So I've known Pamela for eons because we were all in George's classes from the beginning. George is the one who did the last 2 esoteric anatomy interviews. And so Pamela took that information, like we all take the information we learn there and we go into different fields. Like I went more the Chinese feng shui way, and she went into myths. So how did that all happen, that you got into all that mythology?
Well, thank you. The early background is I grew up in a small ranching community in Texas, and it was a great place to be a kid. And, had lots of great experiences, but everything was really flat and there just wasn't much there. And the saying was, you either go crazy or you go creative. And so I feel kind of lucky to kind of have gone a little bit of both. But when I was in the 4th grade, we were so fortunate. Our teacher, after lunch, would have us all come in and put our little heads down on the desk, and she would read to us for about half an hour. And she read throughout the course of the 4th grade year the entire Odyssey and Iliad.
Oh.
And it was amazing. And that was my first real introduction to mythology. And I thought, I understand this. You've got rigged beauty contests. You've got, jealous husbands and wives and people cheating, and you've got people going off on adventures and doing this and doing that. And I thought, God, this mythology stuff is really great. So that was my first interest in it. And then I did study English and Latin and got a degree in English and Latin and film studies, and had been working in the film industry out here for a number of years when I started George's class. And if you recall, there came a point in the instructions where she said, okay, I want you to take this information you've been learning and put it into your profession. At the time, I was producing and directing commercials and short films for aerospace and military. And I thought, how the heck are you going to do something with that and connect those? But what soon became obvious was that the tools of storytelling are all encapsulated in mythology. And the esoteric elements of mythology that Georgia got into quite a bit with the esoteric anatomy. So from there, it wasn't too far of a leap to start teaching people how to use the chakras for character development and how to look at mythic themes for storyline development. And then we also studied in Georgia's class symbols.
Right.
So all of those things were just so easily applicable to storytelling. So I'm thankful to her for posing that homework and it's worked out very well.
Well, we're still doing, I'm still in her full moon classes.
Oh,
And so we're doing every month is the labor of Hercules.
oh, yes, yes. Wow,
Yeah,
wow.
so it just continues on and on, right?
Yeah, there's so much there. And
Mhm.
with comparative mythology, you begin to see that we keep telling each other the same stories over and over.
Mhm.
And I'd like to give the definition of mythology as it's the stories we tell ourselves to explain the world around us and the world within us.
Mhm.
And also, you can see a lot of evidence of this, to explain the world, to justify the world that we have created, right?
That's rampant.
Oh, yeah. And my favorite example of that from history, fact, is the Roman Emperor Augustus, when he took over, felt
Mhm.
like they needed a new mythology. So he commissioned the poet Virgil to write a history of Rome. So Virgil wrote this story about a Trojan prince, Aeneas, who, when Troy was in flames and everything, they'd lost to the Greeks and it was just a mess. And Aeneas started out on a journey that eventually took him through many adventures, but to be the founder of Rome. And it was both an origin story and a poke at the Greeks, kind of like saying, hey, we're better than you guys, because we were founded by the guys that you defeated. Ha ha, you didn't really. We're back.
Right.
So those origin myths that cultures and nations tend to create from themselves, like, for the United States, it's the rugged individual.
Right.
Yeah,
Mhm.
the cowboy mythology, which is a little outdated these days.
And we're reminded of it daily.
Aren't we just? Oh my goodness, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's so great that this whole idea of the mythology and the stories with that, because we're so polarized politically,
Mhm.
health-wise, all of these, and these myths can really make us see how this has been going on for a long time and how to bring it together.
Yes, absolutely. And recognizing the commonalities and yet the unique treatment and presentation, but the commonalities of the themes and the human psychology that is interwoven with all the stories.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, if you just take a couple steps back from your own personal, societal, cultural, tribal perspective, you
Mm-hmm.
can see the connections.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think if more of us remembered to do that more often, we'd all be better off.
Right.
Yeah.
But I wrote my the last newsletter I sent out a few days ago. I somehow got into pomegranates. It's a long story, but I did the Persephone and Hades and Demeter because of the fall equinox. Because
Yes, yes.
it's a myth that's between the two equinoxes, right? And doing that, just going through that, it just brought so much. I mean, there was so much wisdom and all from all so many levels, you know.
Yeah, very much so. And I think that I don't recall exactly who said it, whether it was out of theosophy or one of those larger systems of spiritual presentation, or even older. But the statement was that every true myth is true on 7 levels at least.
Mm-hmm.
The really solid true myths, and those levels can be geological, geographical, physiological, psychological, sociological, historical, i.e. the Aeneid of the Roman
Right.
construction, um, astrological, astronomical, particle physical. I mean, it just reverberates up and down. And
Right.
so many of the myths are really like that, and particularly ones where one of the pairs of lovers is separated from the other and falls into a situation that was
Mhm.
not of their making, or is, taken away by somebody, and then it's making your way back up. And almost every mythology has that, and that separation, and then that search to rescue the lost love and bring them back. And it's reflected in esoteric anatomy too, with the rise of the Kundalini energy, the rise of the consciousness up through the chakras.
Right.
You find reflected in stories like Persephone and Hades, and Orpheus and Eurydice, and Rama and Sita, and Perseus and Andromeda, and Brunhilde and Siegfried. It's all over.
Well, it's pretty universal.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you just hit so many cultures there.
Yeah.
When you were saying that, yeah. So what is your favorite myth that you've used for the current, like, say, political system?
Oh, goodness.
That system, that state of affairs.
Right now? Oh, boy. I think for the current state of affairs, it would be a couple of them, and one would be the war in heaven, where it's the war between the light and the dark. And another would be the wake-up call, where you think you've been one thing and then you get the call, like Luke Skywalker did, or Moses did, or King Arthur, or Jesus. And you go, oh, I have a mission. Okay, I got to go make things better. And the war in heaven, of course, is those warring factors that, depending on who wins, will change things for everybody. So I think those are two of the most prevalent myths right now, along with the mythic concept of the twins. You know, the evil twin and the good twin, the polarity. And as Georgia no doubt talked about, what we see a lot right now, her class in group dynamics is fabulous. And I would encourage everybody to take it.
I've taken that.
It lends itself a lot to local to world politics. And what we're seeing today in many places around the world is that kind of twin polarity thing that's called the solar plexus split.
Right.
And in deeper systems of the chakras, the solar plexus has two parts. There's the lower solar plexus, which is all about me, mine, greed, power. Yeah.
Money.
Money. Oh, absolutely. Lots of money. And then the aspirational solar plexus, which is inclusive as opposed to exclusive. And you see this battle being fought in countries around the world right now between populists and progressives and demagogues and social democracies and dictators and egalitarian systems. And it's a real struggle. It's a struggle for resources, resource acquisition and resource allocation, which affects the lives and livelihood of everybody. So it's something we absolutely have to rise above that polarity and get into the higher chakras of balance and integration, where everybody can win. So
yeah, I just think it's so interesting the way the mindset is, and then that the weather's out picturing it. Such extreme weather, either drought or, you know, these huge thunderstorms and rain, and
oh, so true. And a lot of mythology also, and many stories, show us the concept of truth and consequences. Be there cautionary tales like King Midas, you know, and his greed, and then he got the golden touch, but then, oops, when he touched his daughter, she turned to gold. And when he tried to eat an apple, it turned to gold. So his greed eventually was his downfall. And then, you know, people overusing the resources and repressing other people, and then you get rebellions, and then you get the torches and the pitchforks. And we've seen these stories before.
Yeah.
We don't seem to quite learn the lesson well enough.
They just seem to just do this. And I mean, like, yeah, they almost seem purposely created sometimes.
Yeah. I'm working on a series of stories called The Coral Tie. And the first line that is just the introduction to any of them, it's based on reincarnation.
Okay.
And the first line is, history repeats itself so that everybody has the opportunity to be and do everything.
That's a good one. Yeah.
If you subscribe to the reincarnation theory, that can kind of explain some of what's going on, but it also opens up the door for justification for repression and ignoring people's needs because, hey, it's your own fault if you don't have what I've got. It's your karma. So,
yeah. So when you go in, like with the different studios and things, do they ask you in, or if they have a particular script they have? How does that all work? And advise, or how does that work?
Okay, any number of ways. Some of the projects I've worked on, for instance, for the studios, I did a couple of films for Wes Craven, the director of the Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street and all those. I thought, what? But it was a lot of fun. And I was brought on originally by a production designer, Cynthia Charette, who's a very well-awarded production designer in the industry. And so I was helping her with set designs and such as that. And they said, well, maybe you want to help us on the script too. So that was a door that opened up because she had brought me in. And then when I was doing some workshops for Disney, they used to have a lunchbox lecture series. And they'd have different people come in and talk to them about different aspects of story. And I would give them the presentation about the archepaths for story creation. So would talk about how to use the 5 archepaths of the warrior, magician, scientist, clergy, and lover to create their characters.
Oh, that's a good one. I remember that back in class too.
Yeah, it's fabulous. And I've taught that one too, the military.
About that.
Yeah. And then I do a lot of work for individuals who are developing their projects to then take to the marketplace. And then I really enjoy this. I get to judge a lot of screenplay contests and film festival events too. So you get to see the creativity that's coming up. Just did that for Cal State University for their Media Arts Festival. And it's so encouraging, Carol, to see how the young people are really coming up with original takes on some of the old stories and really getting a voice out there. And it's very, very encouraging. We have a lot of good filmmakers coming up. And then a lot of my clients are people who are retired and finally decided to write that screenplay.
I just went to see Nope. And it was unbelievable. It was so original.
Oh, yeah? Nope. Okay.
It was over at the Lemleys over here, and it was extended 10 days. It's been extended everywhere.
Oh, good.
I won't tell you anything about it because it's so original. When you're saying this, like, you just see how there's so much things that one can write about and bring in. It's just endless. Yeah.
Oh, good. Well, I will check that out. Thank you.
So with this mythic and myth and politics, or their mythic challenge, what's that? What kind of class is that?
Okay. Well, this is basically a consulting service, but story consulting. Brian and Jill and I put this together back in 2012. And it was at an event that Kate McCallum, also a Georgia student, And her partner, Ed Lance, had put on a story conference, and it was based on the global challenges. Kate is the head of the Arts and Media Node of the Millennium Project, and would be a very good person to talk to as well.
Yeah. Oh, I saw her. Yeah, I saw her at a Jungian conference.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she's also with the Producers Guild of America and produces a lot of really wonderful events with them. So the Millennium Project, in collaboration with the United Nations, identified the 15 global challenges that face us now. And some of those are and you can find that just by going to Millennium Project or go to our website, Mythic Challenges, and you can find it there too. But those problems are, for instance, water, women's rights, the rich-poor gap, technology, and what do we do with it, and how do we keep it safe, forming democracies, the environment in general, international organized crime, education. So the 15 global challenges are things we're all having to deal with, and more these days. So what Brian and Jill and I came up with was a way to teach people how to use the mythic tools of mythic themes, archepaths, and symbols to tell a story that addresses those mythic challenges, usually just one at a time. And our first project, it was so neat. We got to test out the project at a high school media class here in Los Angeles, out at Reseda, and their sister school was in Afghanistan. So we had a global reach for that, and the kids were so creative. One group of them, Carol, came up with to deal with the rich-poor gap. They said, let's do a Robin Hood story.
Yeah.
Which is on the mythic theme of stealing fire from heaven. And they did a really, really good job of it. So Mythic Challenges offers people a way to strengthen what a lot of storytellers are already doing, but not consciously, is pulling in from, you remember what's called the rain cloud of knowable things.
Right.
So you get that inspiration. You go, yeah, I'm going to write a story about that. And a lot of it does come to you, and you do your research, and et cetera, et cetera. But how a consultation can help is to help you identify more specifically what your mythic theme is, so that you can then use those plot points that can be recognized around the world, because myth is global, it's universal.
Oh, that's and then, so you can bring that together for them.
Yeah.
That's great.
Oh, it really is. These tools are so fabulous. And like I say, most creative people tap into it intuitively anyway, but just saying, wow, look what you're already doing. If you start doing some of this and some of that, it will enhance and strengthen what you're already working on.
I have a dowsing friend and I put together virtual rain dancers. And we've had that for, it's a Facebook site. And we've had that for, I don't know, 6-7 years now. And we just keep collecting different things about water and rain. I mean, Indian rain dances and all this kind of stuff. So it's a really good resource. But when you said water, that kind of perked me up on that one, because I will send you that. Well, like I say, you can find it at Millennium Project or a Mythic Challenges website. You can find the global challenges, and the thing about connecting up then to their system is, for each of those, you go into this very extensive category of research and websites and just dozens and dozens of resources about water, and find out who's doing what, etc. So you all may already have dealt with some of the people that you would find and some of the organizations that you would find on the Millennium Project's
master list for the water challenge.
Right.
So that's great. It's a good interlocking of the web, if you will.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's so, all of those, that's such a large range of subject matter. I mean, just education is so at risk at the moment, you know.
Well, hence global challenges.
Yeah. It would be so great if myths were more prevalent, you know, like in with the kids and teaching them that.
Yes, we got it. We used to get it in school, and then you didn't. But I have been pleased to see and hear that mythology is being taught once again in a few more schools and is starting to pick up more. But then you have the whole anti-intellectual movement that serves some political situations more, you know. Hey, there have always been book burnings and killing of intellectuals. I mean, just go back in history. But we have to consciously counter that.
Well, I liked, like about 10 years ago, maybe 8 years ago, well, the Percy Jackson series that came out.
Wonderful.
So my grandson, who's like 20 now, he read every one of them twice, and all of his friends.
Oh.
And it was such a great way for them to get all those myths, you know, and it's still kind of continuing. It seems it's dropped off, but it was a great series for them.
Very much so. It's so great that they have that. Yeah, that was a wonderful gift to all.
Exactly, because it was one where it was kind of in their time and in New York, and it was all of that, you know, but with all the mythic stories. Yeah, it was pretty good.
Yeah, definitely.
So are there any other series or anything else, you know, out there that you recommend for that's happening like that?
Oh, with the mythology?
Yeah.
Well, of course, you've got the whole Marvel series, particularly the Thor, the ones that, you know, revolve around Thor, the Norse mythology, Teutonic mythology, which is a very rich pantheon that you will find reflected in others like the Greco-Roman, the Egyptian, the Hindu, the Polynesian, once again, the same archetypes, if you will. But certainly the popularization and the popularity of I'll just call it the Thor collection, even if he's not in every one.
Yeah. No, but, all the kids, I mean, even small ones, all seem to know all the Thor characters. Yeah,
and you've got, you know, that twin thing mentioned earlier. You've got that with Loki and Thor. They're that twin set, the polarities, that have to figure out somehow, hopefully, maybe. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's real good. There are so many more supernatural stories out. I mean, when you just look at, if you go to IMDb and you say top box office and see what's making the most money out there. I saw one just recently, I wrote it down. It's about Marvel's mythic pet, or Marvel's super pets, maybe it is. But it's something about super pets. It was like fifth on the list. I didn't even know that had come out.
No, I didn't hear that either.
Why not?
Exactly.
Yeah. And a lot of the stories, unfortunately, I think, are not only on the dark side of story interpretation and perspective, but a lot of them are just so darn dark. You say, I wish there were a turn up the light dial on my television.
Exactly. Some of them you just can't even stand to watch. I mean, I don't see like how that all got to that stage. But I mean, the whole Harry Potter series too kind of brought a lot of that in and made the kids aware of so much.
Yeah, certainly did.
Certainly did. Yeah. I just remember I'm sitting here and my grandson's over there playing a game. He said, okay, I'll go find you some mana. I'm going, oh, he knows about mana. When he's like 5, you know what I mean? It's so like how those words get into their lexicon.
Yes. And, let's not forget also, and I'm not a big game player, but the games are just full of mythology. In fact, I was the spokesperson for Microsoft when their Age of Mythology game came out and did a video tour about it and got to write the quiz for their website, Which God Are You? And that was a lot of fun. The first one was dealing with, I believe it was Egyptian, Greek, and Norse mythologies. And that was real interesting. So it's still out there, I think on its 49th iteration or something, but yeah, Age of Mythology. And
so
then
they really liked it. I mean, it went.
Yeah. Yeah, it was fun. It was a good game.
So they would just go on an adventure of the god they picked.
Well, the little quiz was just sort of an entertainment before you got into the game. But then, yeah, within the game, you would choose a character and, acquire this or go battle that or defend your country against whatever, whoever. But yeah, plenty of adventures.
Exactly. Early military training.
Yeah. And also sociopolitics. If you make alliances, well, maybe you don't have to go to war.
Yeah.
Or start trade, and then you don't have to raid if you set up trade.
Well, there's a nice one.
Yeah.
I just remember way back there was this game of it was about the world. And so in order to cross the oceans, you had to study the astronomy. So you knew how to go by the stars.
Oh.
And when you got how to mine, it was really, and so this teacher had it in my grandson's class, and the kids would play that in between classes.
Oh.
It was my son's class. And I thought that was such a great one because you just kept learning all these, like astrology and mineralogy and all of these things.
Oh, that's good.
And then it seemed to disappear. Yeah.
Huh.
But that might be a good one.
Yeah, maybe it's come back as a game, but yeah. Oh, that's good. It's a great way to teach so many things with entertainment.
Right.
So, and often in teaching story, I will point out the 4 E's. And that's, whatever your project is, it will have some aspects of each of these, or maybe not. And if you're missing one, you need to, figure out how to make it work. But the 4 E's are entertainment, education, enlightenment, and expression. And if you take those 4 and take your favorite movie and think of a pie chart and how much of the pie is filled with entertainment. So in your, action adventure movies, it might be 75% of the pie is entertainment. And then maybe 10% you actually learn something. And another 15% is the expression of the director and how they want it to be. No enlightenment whatsoever. And then, other stories are different. So it's a way to look at a media product.
Right.
And see.
I imagine entertainment's become bigger and bigger.
Yeah, it sure has. It sure has, particularly for the studios, because they have to make all their money back, which means it has to be accessible to foreign markets, which means you can't get too subtle with the dialogue and the meaning, because, you need just action. So you don't find so many thoughtful movies that are meant for international markets coming from the big studios.
I just find it, with the kids looking back at the old Mickey Mouse movies that Disney made,
Yes.
so fabulous. Like everything was alive and the trees are alive and the sky is alive. And you know what I mean? It was so all elemental, alive. Where
Uh-huh.
now you look at them, they're so different. They're just boom, boom, boom. You know what I mean? Like they're
Oh, interesting.
fragmented. And those, they just flow. They're so nice. Just checking out an old Mickey Mouse one.
I will. Thank you.
The difference is just startling.
Okay. Okay. Hmm.
But he was really into making all the elementals. You know, the fire will be alive. The water will be alive.
Oh, right, right. Oh, and that wonderful Disney movie, Fantasia,
Mm-hmm.
which was, well, Mickey was in that, of course, but so many other
Mm-hmm.
creatures and things as well. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, and I think the four E's are really important because if you don't have a balance in your stories, you start to lose balance in your life
Mm-hmm.
and the life of your tribe or culture or society or nation. And we're seeing so much of that fragmentation now and that overemphasis in some areas
Mm-hmm.
to the detriment of others. Oh, like the environment versus development. Yeah, it's like,
So your four E's were education, entertainment, expression. What's the fourth one?
enlightenment.
Enlightenment. Okay.
Yeah.
Most an important one. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Which you find in, fortunately, quite a few
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
projects, films, TV series, games. Yeah. Yeah.
So when you've worked, I know, with the military, how is that being utilized?
Oh, well, that was so interesting. I was just so tickled to be able to do that. I was the field producer on some episodes for America's Army.
Mm.
And we were filming out at Fort Irwin, which is the training base in California here, not too far out of Los Angeles. And it was when digitization was first going into the military. So these were showing people how the Army was digitized
Mm-hmm.
and that interconnectivity. And it was shifting the balance of power between the stovepipe, let's say, of the generals at the top and the private at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And typically throughout history, you had information, orders flowing down and then information slowly coming back up and then decisions being made and information going back down in orders. Well, with digital technology, the decision makers, whether it's a general or a major or captain, whatever, can get instantaneous feedback from the field and know exactly what's going on right then and can make more timely decisions.
Mm-hmm.
So the digitization of the military made a huge difference. It was a huge force multiplier. So I'm going to link that to a mythological thing in a moment.
Okay.
But anyway, so it was real interesting. We were out there to film this stuff, but a couple of the people that I met, including one general, we started talking about some of these things that we've been talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, well, I'm forming a think tank, and would you like to be a member of it? Yes, please. So it was really wonderful. They were very open-minded. This was in the 90s, a couple of years after the wall had gone down, the Cold War was over, and we were getting the peace dividend. So the militaries were opening up to all sorts of new ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I went in and talked about archipaths and the chakras, and yeah, it was great. At Fort Knox, got to give a presentation to their medical staff on esoteric anatomy. And it was incredible.
Never hear about these things.
Well, not these days. the golden era of exploration into other arenas for the military. And what was also very rewarding was a couple of the people would come up afterwards and they'd say, you just made it okay for us to talk about some of the things we always think about. And we're talking about their own philosophical, spiritual experiences and questions and such. And so it was very heartening to see that. And I'm still in touch with a number of the people from the think tank. I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it.
It's a shame that sort of like disappeared.
Yeah, it is. It's part of that, the pendulum swinging back and forth, unfortunately. But if you can catch it, at the right place and hopefully keep it from going too far into the darkness, stay a little bit more on the light side. But it's always there, it's like metaphysics always need to keep in mind physics, like Newton's 3 laws of motion. For every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction. That's just physics.
But physics, it's just like inundated everything. I mean, it's so big now, so many people into it. I mean, so it has to be hitting into media and things too. Right?
Well, say more about what you're seeing about that.
Well, it's just, I keep like, when I hear something or do something, we were talking about phys-or, I go on and I can find so much research. And like I was telling you just about the North Pole and the South Pole, they found that the universe has a North Pole and a South Pole.
Oh, I really want to know more about that.
No, but I mean, just even with mythologies, that just brings it, all of those things, they just kind of integrate, it goes more into all the other things we're studying. Yeah. And all the AI and the transhumanism. And
oh my goodness, yes. And plenty of myths about that,
I was thinking about King Midas and transhumanism when you were saying that.
Oh yeah. And one of the best stories about that, also from Greek mythology, is the story of Pygmalion, who was a sculptor, and he had a bad experience with a girl, and he said, I'm never dating girls again. So he carved one out of marble. And she was gorgeous. Galatea was beautiful, and he would dress her up, and they'd have little tea parties, and he fell in love with his creation, right? And then he prayed to Aphrodite to have her come alive, and because his love was so ardent and so true, she granted him the wish, and Galatea came alive. And so there she was, the perfect girl, because he made her, okay, a little bit maybe misogynist there, I don't know, but
I love the name of Galatea. That's good.
Yeah. And then you've got, on the flip side of that story, I think one of our most recognizable versions of it is the story of Dr. Frankenstein, who was so grief-stricken by the death of his mother, he decided to create life. And we saw where that ended.
Yeah. No, it's really, it just is exponential. It's growing so fast, the things they're able to do in all the AI and transhumanism too.
Yeah. And keep in mind too that most mythologies have creation and destruction stories. Whether it's in the Bible, where God creates humans and then after some time goes, not working well.
Right.
Time for a flood. Wipe them out.
Let's have a Tower of Babel. Babel.
Right. And one of my favorites, and I've still not gotten a satisfactory answer for this, I probably need to do more research, is that in some of the Meso and South American mythologies, the world has already been destroyed 3 times. That's by fire, wind, and water. And the next time it's supposed to be by jaguars. I'm having a hard time picturing that.
Well, there's all these chimeras too that they've just created through history, like, And so now everybody's so like up in arms, but they've been created through history.
Very much so. Yeah. And you know, there's a lot of origin myths and speculative philosophy, let's say, that we were created by beings from other places who came down and altered the genes of Neanderthals or the early primates and got humans, and it was for slave purposes. I think the whole Stargate series, that was their original premise, and you can find it in Sumerian mythology, Mesopotamian mythology. So yeah, and who knows?
I was so amazed when I had my DNA done, you know, with 1, 2, and 3. I have more Neanderthal than 90% of anyone who's ever had it tested.
Well, you know what? Lucky you, because they're finding out they were a whole lot smarter than they've been given credit
for. They were artists.
Yes, yes.
I thought that was so funny, though, like how they they're looking for, you know, they're looking for stuff like that when they're taking those tests. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so interesting. How interesting. Have you been to any of the places where there are the petroglyphs and cave paintings and all?
There's one right here up by, where is that? It's only like about on the way to Bakersfield, where you go way out into the mountains. They're just covered with petroglyphs, and no one's out there.
Wow.
Where all the flowers are, like, you know, when the poppies bloom that, and then you just drive out past, and like about 45 minutes, there's these big like mountains or hills, big hills, rock, and they're all covered with petroglyphs.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, that's worth a field trip when the weather's cooler.
Especially, it's nice when there's the poppies, and then you go to the petroglyphs, you know?
Yes. Wow. Wow.
But the petroglyphs are like, wow. I mean, there's so much action in a lot of them, and stories, you know? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Early storytelling.
Yeah. Well,
pretty amazing.
Oh, well, we've been here 50 minutes already. So do you have anything else you'd like to share? Because this was really good. I love the 5, what are your 5 archetypes again?
Oh, the 5 archepaths.
Archepaths.
Yes, any archetype can be on any one of the paths.
Okay.
And the 5 paths are the magician, the warrior, the scientist, clergy, and lover.
Okay, I got that.
And then what's really rich about them is that each path has 3 levels, like the beginner, the adept, the master. And each path has 3 approaches: emotional, mental, and synthesized. So you can really, for your characters, you can take somebody up and down the levels, or they switch between the approaches, or they say, I'm tired of being a warrior, I want to be a monk. And there's some good stories about that. You know, detective stories. Warrior turned into a monk, and he becomes a detective in medieval Europe. And then putting characters together for conflict and then resolution, if, you know, you've got one person on this path, the other. So it's a really wonderful story tool. Also, it's very good for a personal awareness and development tool. When I do a personal mythology consultation for people, that's what we do. We figure out where they are now, where they've been. So what tools they have from having been, say, on the scientist path for a number of years, and then they decided to go do this, they're on a different path, and where are they going next? So it can be really helpful for us as individuals, particularly when we want to make changes and think, well, maybe I just should change the whole path.
Well, I'm glad I asked for that again, because it's much more complex. Yeah.
Oh, it's marvelously complex. Yes. Yes. And really, really a rich thing. I did have one more thing. Actually, 2 things I wanted to read if we do have time.
Sure, we've got time.
Okay. One thing that most stories have, whether it's novels, TV episodes, movies, games, are the mythic statements.
Mhm.
And the three mythic statements are the thematic statement, what's the story about?
Mhm.
The mission statement, what is the protagonist supposed to accomplish? And then the lesson statement, what did they learn?
Mhm.
And one of my favorite examples of that, just a moment here, is as far as the thematic, etc., kind of along the lines of today, is from the film Apocalypse Now, which I'm thinking is something we should all go back and watch because it's about people getting way out of hand with power.
Mhm. Mhm.
And the theme of it, well, actually, I'll read you the lesson first, because in this film, typically you have the thematic statement first. What's this story about?
Right.
And then you have the mission, go do this, save us, Obi-Wan.
Mhm.
And then the lesson at the end, I see it was all about this.
Mhm.
In Apocalypse Now, it's reversed, and you start off with the lesson statement, which is, everyone gets everything they want. I asked for a mission, and for my sins, they gave me one.
Mm.
It was no accident I was the caretaker of Colonel Kurtz, because to tell his story is to tell mine. And then Captain Willard gets his mission from the general and the CIA, and Harrison Ford is also in the room. And it's to go upriver and take out Colonel Kurtz, who is just gone mad with power and has this horrible cult following, and it's just dreadful.
Mhm.
And the general says, terminate the colonel's command, terminate with extreme prejudice,
Mhm.
take him out. Key is the thematic statement, and the general says, there's a conflict in every human heart between the rational and the irrational, between good and evil, and good does not always win. Sometimes the dark side overcomes what Lincoln calls the better angels of our nature.
Mhm.
Every man has got a breaking point. It's
Wow.
like, whoa. And
Yeah.
then, but to close about story, because this is a more hopeful.
Mhm.
This is from The Two Towers, Lord of the Rings.
Mhm.
And it's in the second film, and they've been fighting the dragons and the bad guys, and they're just all beat to heck. And Frodo and Sam are just crumpled by the wall, and Frodo's going, I just can't do it anymore. And Sam says, I know it's all wrong. By rights, we shouldn't even be here, but we are. It's like in the great stories, Mr. Frodo, the ones that really mattered. Full of darkness and danger they were. And sometimes you didn't want to know the end, because how could the end be happy? How could the world go back to the way it was when so much bad had happened? But in the end, it's only a passing thing, this shadow. Even darkness must pass. A new day will come. And when the sun shines, it will shine out the clearer. Those were the stories that stayed with you, that meant something, even if you were too small to understand why. But I think, Mr. Frodo, I do understand. I know now. Folks in those stories had lots of chances of turning back, only they didn't. They kept going because they were holding on to something. And Frodo says, what are we holding on to, Sam? That there's something good in this world, Mr. Frodo, and it's worth fighting for.
Wow. That's great.
Isn't it?
Yeah. When you isolate things like that and really think about them. Yeah.
Yeah. And for storytellers to be able to write those words and scenes that encapsulate those truths
Mm-hmm.
is such a gift to the rest of us.
Mm-hmm.
It's just amazing.
Wow. Well, that was perfect. Okay. So if people want to get a hold of you, how can they do that? And then when I post this video, it'll have those links too. What is your,
Oh,
what are your links?
Oh, okay. They can go to mythworks.net.
Mm-hmm.
They can go to PamelaJSmith.com. They can go to mythicchallenges.com.
Oh, right. We've got a whole array.
Yeah, yeah. So, and you can find Mythic Challenges
Alphababes.com,
at
probably.
alphababacademy.com.
Academy. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. But you can just start with, go to PamelaJSmith.com and you'll find, links to all of those things. So
Okay.
that's probably the easiest one.
Well, this was great. I mean, your life has been so full, like with the myths, the way you've been able to bring them into so many different venues.
Yeah, I've been so fortunate and
Yeah.
really, really grateful for it. It's been a great adventure so far.
Okay. Well, thank you, Pamela.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to seeing many more of the programs on your site.
Okay. And everyone will see you next week or the next week.